Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking the emotive depth and that really profound connection to nature found in Ruskin Bond's famous poem Cherry Tree. Now, on the surface, sure, it's just a simple story about a seed growing into a plant. But as we look closer at the source material today, we're going to see it's actually a masterful rumination on survival, vulnerability, and the shared struggle of literally all living things. Okay, let's dive into this. Think about your own life for a second. Do our greatest achievements come from meticulous planning or just a stubborn refusal to give up? Keep that thought right in the back of your mind, because as we journey through the life of this tiny cherry seed, I think you'll find that the answer nature gives us is profoundly inspiring, and it directly mirrors the exact obstacles we face every day. Section 1. Planting the cherry seed. So every great journey has a spark, right? An inciting incident. And for our timeline today, that spark is incredibly humble. The poem starts simply with a young poet pressing a seed into the earth. There's no grand master plan here. It's just this simple, deeply human desire to have a plant to call his very own. He plants the seed, and the clock starts. 8. I want you to really absorb that number for a second. It took a massive 8-year span for this tiny seed to fully grow. In our world of instant gratification, 8 years feels like an absolute eternity. But establishing this timeline right off the bat sets the stakes. It shows us the sheer scale of time and patience required for true resilience. And right away, we get this amazing contrast. On one side, you have the human element, the poet. He waters the seed daily, doing his best, but he's basically clueless that a cherry plant actually requires extra special care to thrive. He's completely naive. But then on the other side, we have the tree. Even without getting that special attention, it pushes through anyway. The text literally describes it as being too stubborn to give up. It's driven by this innate, unstoppable force that operates totally independently of the poet's flawed gardening. If we map out the linear hero's journey of our tree, we start at year 0 with that completely ignored, naive planting. Then, by May, boom, a small, fragile sapling miraculously appears out of the dirt. It is incredibly vulnerable. And finally, we jump all the way to year 8, where it's transformed into this towering presence, 6 feet high. But wow, getting from that fragile May sapling to that year 8 triumph was definitely not a walk in the park. Section 2. Surviving against all odds. This is where the real gauntlet begins. The sapling hasn't just grown. It has survived a brutal external test thrown down by nature itself. The environment was completely hostile to this vulnerable young life. Just look at how stacked the odds were. First, tall wild grasses grew all around it, threatening to just choke it out entirely. Then hungry goats came along and stripped its leaves, taking away its ability to gather energy. And if that wasn't enough, it faced the sharp, random danger of a grasscutter's blade, followed up by the crushing, drowning force of heavy monsoons beating down on its tender stem. It's one threat after another, in rapid succession, constantly pushing this young life to the absolute brink. In fact, the poem uses this incredibly powerful phrase regarding that grasscutter's blade. It says the plant was mercilessly split apart. That imagery is just devastating. It highlights the absolute vulnerability of the sapling. I mean, in a single, careless sweep of a blade, its journey was nearly over. It was broken, physically split, and essentially left for dead. But, and this brilliantly illustrates the core theme of our explainer, even after being split apart, even after the goats and the monsoons, the young tree fought back. The poet observes new shoots growing right out of that broken stem. It fiercely made an upward thrust to get light and air and sun. Let the beauty of that phrasing wash over you for a second. It's the perfect metaphor for pushing through our own life's obstacles, right? When we are broken down, we too just have to fiercely make that upward thrust toward the light. Section 3. The miracle of time. So now we reach a major turning point in the narrative. This is the moment where human intervention, flawed as it was, completely stops. The poet says goodbye to his struggling tree and travels to Kashmir for a season, and the true test of independent survival kicks off. When he comes back months later, the poem notes that he is poor in health and heart. Now, this is a vital detail. It sets up this really sharp, poignant contrast between human frailty, how quickly we can get depleted, and the sheer, stubborn endurance of the natural world. Because while the poet was away, the tree was completely left to its own devices. No daily watering, no watchful eye. It was left entirely to the mercy of time and the rain. And yet, without any special attention from its human creator, it was nourished purely by the elements. It proved, once and for all, that it was simply too stubborn to die.
which leads to the triumphant surprise waiting for the poet at his doorstep when he finally gets back. 6. A magnificent, dark cherry tree standing a full 6 feet high, from a tiny seed to a broken sapling to a towering testament of survival.
Section 4. The fragile pink berry. Now, you might think the sheer height of the tree is the emotional climax here, but it's really not. Let's look closely at what the poet discovers next, because it changes his entire perspective. 1. To his absolute disbelief, after 8 long years of battling grasses, goats, blades, and monsoons, the tree has finally produced fruit. But not some massive harvest, just a single berry. The extreme rarity of this single fruit just massively amplifies the stakes of everything the tree has endured. All of that struggle, just for this one singular creation.
The poet writes, hung from a branch, just one, a small little pink and fragile berry. It's honestly breathtaking. This delicate reward is so vulnerable that it could fall at the single stir of the wind. It perfectly captures the fleeting, delicate fragility of life itself, you know? A massive monument to resilience, culminating in something incredibly small, beautiful, and totally vulnerable.
Section 5. Participating in creation. Moving into the resolution of our explainer, we see that this tree is no longer just a solitary survivor. Its stubborn refusal to die has allowed it to become a foundational pillar for life around it. The tree has actually created an ecosystem. Imagine the scene the poet takes in as he lays leisurely on the grass for a whole day. He paints this vibrant, sensory picture. Finches flying past, flocks of birds darting in and out, bees carefully drinking nectar from each bloom. And as day turns to night, the stars light up the sky, and the tree becomes a stage for singing moon moths and crickets. This one stubborn seed is now sustaining an entire world of flying, singing, buzzing life. Taking all this in, the poet just marvels at what he calls his creation. He feels this deep kinship with nature, just enjoying its rapture. Now, sure, he didn't do the hard work, the tree did, but he takes an immense, quiet pride in being the spark, in being a small part of this grand 8-year process that brought so much life into the world. He actually associates himself with the Creator, standing in pure awe of the natural order. So, the crucial point is how this poem completely redefines creation. As outlined in the summary, creation isn't just about that initial planting. Creation is the ongoing struggle of each living object to fight and survive despite all odds. It's the upward thrust, it's the stubborn refusal to give up. The cherry tree represents the persistent shared will of all living things, including us, to endure. As we wrap up the explainer today, I want to leave you with a thought directly inspired by the heroism of that little seed. What have you planted in your own life? Maybe a goal, a relationship, a dream that has faced its own wild grasses and sharp blades, and might now just need time and the rain to finally blossom. Remember, sometimes you don't need a meticulous plan. Sometimes you just need to be too stubborn to give up. Thank you for joining me, and keep thrusting upward.